Ladies and gentlemen, this is a disclaimer that the content you are about to listen to could contain traumatic or emotional stories. If this brings up any emotions or traumatic events that you've experienced, please seek appropriate services if needed. As always, it is important that we remember that the guests are here to share with all of us, and we need to be empathetic and supportive to foster a community where individuals feel safe to share these types of stories. If you have an individual you would like to see on the show, please make sure to comment below, and I will see if they're interested. If you are someone interested in being on the show, please reach out and let's make it happen. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and today I am followed by a very happy guest to get on this show, Tim Bylund, better known as Manneten. He is 21 years old. He is the previous player for the Florida Mayhem, and actually before that he was on Misfits, which was rebranded into Mayhem. But he was also on Luminosity, which is kind of cool because Luminosity has recently been announced to be in the Overwatch League. Thank you so much for being on the show, Tim, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really fun. We have quite a bit of time here to go over things. There hasn't been a lot of interviews with you, which I think is...
There's been like 3 maybe, max.
Do you not like doing interviews normally?
I mean, at first I was kind of scared, but now I don't really mind them. I think they're kind of fun, and you get to know more people, and yeah, I think it's just fun right now. But I used to be pretty scared of them, yeah.
Okay. So when you say pretty scared, did they like cause you anxiety and stuff like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, when you're young and you're like, esports is kind of new. I kind of just jumped into it, and then people want to do interviews, and I don't know, it was kind of weird for me when I was younger, I guess.
Okay. I like how you say younger, right? 'Cause you're 21 years old, and that's definitely more of a mid-range age for esports. Yeah. But I'm 26, turning on like 27, and so when I hear that, I think of like, oh man, when I was a wee little baby. Oh gosh. So you are from Sweden, right?
Yeah.
A town called Karlstad? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Karlstad. Yeah,
Karlstad, close enough. So it's cold in Karlstad, right? It's like relative. I was looking at like the temperatures because I come from up north in the States, and it's fairly chilly over in there. You get like average.
Right now it's surprisingly hot right now for Sweden actually. Like you can go out in like t-shirts and sweatpants like during the day on some days, which is kind of weird for Sweden. Usually you have to like wear jackets and everything in October, but or November, I guess, actually, soon. But yeah, it's surprisingly hot, but it's usually super cold, like during the October, November, December area. So I'm excited to wear my coat.
Is that because of global warming, Tim? Is that why it's warmer? Maybe the world is just dying on itself.
Yeah.
So you lived in LA for a while.
Yeah.
Did you laugh at people who would complain about like it being chilly out?
Yes.
Because
it's never chilly in LA.
I know, right? Like I remember being in LA and I was like, "Oh my god, the weather is perfect all the time."
Yeah.
You guys don't know what hell looks like. People think hell is warm. It's not. It's cold. It is really cold.
Yes. And it's like raining and they're like getting scared and everything. It's like, "Oh, what do we do? We have no coats." Like, buy an umbrella.
Yeah, right? I totally forgot about that they freak out about the rain so much they're like, and it rained a lot last year. Like everyone was like, it was raining, and I was like, this seems normal. Like,
like 3 times in like a couple of months, and they're like, what? It never rains here.
Like, it was
pretty normal to me.
It was insane. So you have been kind of going on the esports career for the last 3 years now. Has it been 3 years you've been kind of involved in esports? Because you started with Too Strong, right? Is that how you
correct.
Too Strong. Oh my god, I saw the spelling, and I literally wanted to stick my other hand in a snowblower. Like, I
don't even know how we got the name. I actually don't remember.
So you must have been like 18 then, right? 19?
Yeah, I just finished school. I signed my contract like 1 month after I finished school, so it was like 18, yeah. Actually, I might have just turned 19. No, it was 18, yeah, for sure.
No, was that your like first actual like esports team, or had you been trying to like get involved in esports before that?
No, that was my first like official team. Before that, I only played with like friends and just. I mean, I've always been a very competitive person, but that was the first time I really tried to get better as a team and not just individual and pub stomping, etc. Yeah.
Okay, so you've always been very individually competitive, you said.
Yeah.
Does that include for like other areas of your your life? Or mostly just
everything. Yeah, mostly everything except school. I was pretty bad at school, gotta be honest. But
you were pretty bad at school.
Yeah.
That's actually a common thing that I've heard from a lot of people. What
Yeah.
age was school a problem? Because that's another thing that I've noticed is that there's a definitely cutoff age where school becomes
Yeah.
way more of a problem.
I would say I was probably around 15.
Okay.
It was ninth grade before I was going to, I'm not sure what it's called in English, but here we call it like gymnasium, where they have like the first, second, third class, and then you're off to work basically. And then I kind of screwed up and I had to redo some stuff. And yeah, I think that was probably my worst year. And after that, I went back into it and I got better. So
Okay. That's interesting that that's something that I've been able to kind of like pick up on is that everyone seems to have like a cutting point where things just for some reason get harder, and that's where a lot of their shift from professional gamers from what I've seen is that their shift tends to go towards this other thing. A lot of times it's video games.
yeah,
So, what was that thing that happened that made it so hard?
I'm not sure. I guess you kind of just get like burnt out and bored in a way. Like you do school for so many years and it's repetitive, and eventually it's gonna get boring. But I mean, some people just keep going because like you should keep going. Like school is good. School is good for you. But some people just drop it and they get bored and they stay home and play video games instead, and then they forget how important it is. But I managed to get back on track, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So, what was growing up like for you?
Honestly, it was pretty easy. Like the only difficult part was that my dad and mom lived pretty far away, but money was never a problem. My family was always super nice, and yeah, it was just like traveling back and forth. That was kind of annoying.
What do you mean traveling back and forth?
I mean, if I wanted to get to my mom, I had to take like a 40-minute bus.
Mhm.
And when I was at my mom, if I had to go to the school, I had to take like a 40-minute bus back to school.
Oh, so your
so
parents are separated then?
yeah,
Okay.
at a very young age. I don't even remember. It was probably like 2 or something.
Oh wow,
around that
you
age.
were actually really young.
Yeah.
My parents got separated when I was 6, right around that age. So,
Oh.
and I remember it quite clearly. And actually, for a lot of people, the separation tends to be fairly hard actually, because depending on
Yeah,
your
I think it's harder
situation.
if you're older and you know what's actually happening. But I was so young, I didn't know what's happening, so I
And
don't
then
really remember it.
you grew up in it then, so it
Yeah,
must have been.
kind of got used to it, I guess. It's kind of normal for me.
So you have 2 brothers, right?
3 actually.
Three. Oh, I've only
Yes.
saw the is the third one not talked about very often too.
No,
Okay.
no. It's not talked about very often. But I have 2. That's the 2 brothers got me into video games when I was like 5, and ever since then I've just been grinding every video game out there.
Okay, so are all of your brothers older?
Yes,
Okay,
they're
how much?
around 30 to 35.
Holy, they are a lot older.
Yep.
They got some. So they must have seen like the divorce a lot more then.
Yeah, they actually have a different dad,
Oh, okay.
but they also got divorced. I'm not sure when they got divorced, to be honest.
Hmm.
I didn't meet their dad too much at all,
Mhm.
actually. So I'm not sure about that situation, but yeah, about it.
Okay, so the divorce wasn't that hard on you, but the traveling must have been.
Yeah, that was the main thing. That was it was more annoying than hard, but like if I go to my mom, I don't really have any friends at her place.
Mhm.
If I was staying at her for a weekend, it was only me and my mom.
Mhm.
And then eventually it went to the point I was only at my dad. Because when you're like 12, 13, you want to hang out with friends, right?
Mhm.
Like if on the weekend, I don't want to go to my mom and just sit there, watch TV. I want to hang out with my friends, play video games, and just chill. So eventually it went to me basically being like never at my mom's place,
Mhm.
which was kind of rough, but I think it was better for me to hang out with friends and get to know people and yeah, just meet moms at holidays and when she wanted to meet me, basically.
So you mentioned that it was kind of rough. Can you go more into that? Like, what made it really hard for you? Because I know a lot of people, especially nowadays, parents being separated is definitely more of a norm probably than it was like 10, 20 years ago, and people are dealing with it. And I think that people can kind of relate to that. What was it like for you, and how did it make you feel? So that way people know that maybe they're not alone.
I mean, I guess the main problem is I can't go meet my mom whenever I want. Like if I have a problem, let's say in school or with friends, I can't just go to my mom like, hey, we need to talk about this. I have to travel for 40 minutes,
Mhm.
then talk to her there, and then eventually travel back. So I guess it's that feeling of her being close to you whenever you want, basically. Yes,
Mhm.
that's the main thing.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. My
Yeah.
mom and dad lived, I think it was around 90 minutes. It was a drive. Um,
Oh.
yeah, it was a drive.
Yeah.
It was a 90-minute drive, so you're driving 60 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Are
That's
lovely, and
bad.
yeah, it was rough because I would go every other weekend, and then
Okay.
it would swap during the summer, and so it was always very interesting. And I definitely had more friends kind of more friends at one location. So, because school was kind of rough for me. You mentioned that you didn't really have any friends at your mom's. Is that because just the location was so far away and you weren't going to school there?
Yeah, the location was pretty far away, but she also lived in kind of like a farm area. Like she had horses and stuff, so it was kind of off. Like I guess off-road in a way. Like there weren't many people living around her. I didn't go to school there, so I never really met anyone there basically. And yeah, all my friends were at my dad's place. Yeah, trying to remember actually. And she also moved a lot.
Okay.
Like she would live in a place for like a year or two, and then she would swap, and then she would swap again. Yeah, she swapped a lot, like maybe 6 times in total.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been really frustrating. So your brothers are older, and they got you into video games.
Yeah.
Right. So what was school like then? Because you said you were hanging out with friends for a long time, and then school got harder. So school must have been pretty good all the way up until you mentioned 15.
Yeah, 15. Yeah, correct. Yeah, school was pretty easy. Went like after that, I went to probably like one of the easier schools in like my area, I guess. Studying for electrician. Actually, it was pretty easy. And before that, it was just like going to school, getting it done, going back, playing video games with my brothers. Like every day, just repeat, and then yeah, it's kept going.
And so your brothers lived with your mom, right?
Early on, they visited her a lot, and then they moved out pretty early.
Okay.
Like when I was young, they just moved out. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I usually go to their place, and we usually have like LAN parties a couple of weekends. So yeah.
What kind of games were you playing at LAN parties? Old school Halo?
Yeah, Halo 2, Halo 3, some Rainbow Six in there. Yeah. And Ratchet and Clank, of course, Jack and Dexter. Yeah, some old good games. So.
Right. When gaming was a simpler era. That's gaming was much simpler.
Yeah.
So your brothers and your dad came to visit you when you were playing with Florida Mayhem. I remember seeing like pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Has your mom got to come see that aspect? How does she feel about it?
She's super supportive, which is really nice. Hopefully, if I go to LA next year, she'll be able to come. She really wants to, so I'm hoping I'll be able to get her there. Should be fine, but yeah, she's always been super supportive ever since I started. She's always happy. She doesn't understand the game, but she keeps watching, which is fun. She's like, oh, there's characters here and there, and they're using all these spells, and I'm like, I need to teach you. But yeah, she's always super supportive and super fun.
Okay. And then what about your third brother?
I haven't met him in many years. He was kind of like, I don't want to name shame him too much, but he was kind of like the bad boy of the group, I guess.
Okay.
So I haven't really met him in a really long time, actually.
Okay. I'm really sorry to hear that. I know that sometimes not seeing family can be hard, even if there is some negative with that. So that's sad to hear. So ice hockey is big in Karlstad, right?
Yeah, my dad is super into hockey as well.
Sweden in general, which I thought was cool because where I live, actually, ice hockey is fairly popular too. Did you ever do ice hockey? Because I know I didn't. I can't skate to save my life, and everyone knows how to skate. Like, I get shamed. Like, they're like, you don't know how to skate? And I'm like, no, I can snowboard, but I cannot skate to save my life.
I mean, I did it in school. But I never really like went to like a ice hockey practice or anything. I just did it in school, and then I did some floorball, if you know what that is. It's basically ice hockey without the skates.
Yeah.
Then did some football, but I don't know.
When you say football, do you mean soccer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna tell everyone who watches this now because they're like, "What are you talking about? That is actual football."
No, but I never really got into ice hockey for some reason.
Okay, I think that's very interesting. I didn't mind watching it, but I also come from a state that has a fairly popular ice hockey team.
No, I think it's a cool sport for sure.
Yeah.
To watch. Yeah.
I think I like it better than football. Both
yeah.
footballs.
Yeah.
Oh. Whew, we were getting this going right off the bat. So, you got into Too Strong, and you actually had a contract with them. You mentioned that was one of the first contracts that.
I mean, Too Strong didn't have a contract, but we got picked up by Luminosity like super early. Yeah. So that was the first contract with Luminosity.
Okay, what was that like getting picked up? Because that would have been functionally probably an equivalent to our T2 scene now, right? Like as close as you could. It probably wasn't as. I mean, I'm hoping our T2 scene is more grown a lot more, but based on the last news that I just heard like yesterday, I don't really know. I do want to get your opinion on that a little bit, if you can. But let's go into what was it like being picked up by Luminosity?
It was kind of like the saving grace, because when I finished school, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really want to be an electrician. I didn't think it was too much fun. So my other option was just keep studying, trying to find something else. But then, Steve from Luminosity contacted us, like, hey, we want to pick you guys up, and then this dream come true, and we just started grinding.
That sounds like
Yeah.
it definitely sounds so like working up into that. How did you make it? Like you were playing games. You started getting to games at 15, right?
Like 5.
Or
Like,
yeah, 5.
I was 5, yeah.
But like seriously into like competing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I started Overwatch, was like the first, or actually Smite. Smite was the first game where I was like, I want to be good at this game.
Mhm.
So I just grinded ladder, and I got to like top 15 in the rank, but like, the game was so small. Like, it was a very small game. Like, they had big prize pools, but the game in general was so small, and everyone kind of knew each other, but I didn't. So it was hard to get like a tryout or get on a team, because they already had like these set groups that were playing with each other.
Mhm.
So then, as soon as I saw Overwatch, I just jumped in, went to like level 10 or something, went on Reddit, like, I need a team, I want to go on a team, I want to play with people. And like, the people I met on the team, I still talk to them today. And I'm
Mhm.
forever grateful with like how they helped me improve as a player, and how I eventually met Mineral and Save from SK, who is now with Mayhem still. So yeah, super fun. And Mayhem, I've been with Mineral for like almost 3 years with Mineral, actually, which is
Really,
super
almost
cool.
3.
Yeah.
That is a long time with a coach, and we're gonna get into some of that stuff definitely. I definitely want to talk about that a little bit later. So your game, you mentioned that your brothers got you into gaming at 5. And
Yeah.
I imagine that that's very casual gaming that probably had nothing to do with where you are now. It actually bothers me sometimes when people are like, "How did you become an esports pro?" And people are like, "I started gaming at 5." And I do agree with some of the other opinions that I've heard that that's like a famous singer being like, "I started singing at 3."
Yeah.
Right. I don't really think that that is the reason why you were a professional gamer. It maybe was a factor, right? But so
Yeah, a little bit.
you started playing at 5. And you were
Yeah, still.
not nearly as good as you are now, right?
Nope.
And just because you play at 5 does not mean you're going to be a pro gamer. Stay in school, kids, please.
Yep. Stay
Okay.
in school. Very important.
Stay in school. So you started playing when you were 5 because you were hanging out with your brothers. Was that
Yeah.
a bonding, something that you did to bond with them? Is that like the main
Yeah.
way that you bonded with them?
Yeah, that was like our thing. Like, whenever we met, it was always like, did you bring your Xbox? Or did you bring your laptop? And it was always like, do you have Ratchet and Clank, or do you have a racing game? Or you just play all the night. I remember this specific video game called Micro Machines. Do you know that game?
I have not heard of that game.
It's basically, you're a toy car. There's like 6 toy cars, and there's just like power-ups everywhere. You're just driving around, and it's the first guy that wins basically. And it was our favorite game, and then eventually we lost that game. I remember we were going to have a LAN party with the game. We couldn't find the CD for it. So we just drove around the city looking for that game for like hours and hours, and we could never find it. So yeah, gaming was always the way for us to bond.
Okay, so that must have been really cool then when you finally made it into pro, because your brothers must have been like, "Oh my god!" Like,
Yeah.
I imagine that they thought this wasn't even a possibility, because it,
I mean,
like
kind of, because like,
growing up.
yeah, growing up, they didn't know it was a possibility. But when I was like 16, 17, I got so much confidence, because all my friends and like my brothers, like, you're gonna be a pro gamer or like a streamer, because they always rated me so highly, because I always stomped them in video games ever since I was like 10. So they was like, you need to do something in gaming because you're so good at it. And I think that really boosted my confidence, just going all the time.
So they were like your main support, like throughout your entire life, to kind of help you and grow up. And I imagine that when you have hard moments, those are probably the people that you always reach out to when are like, "Hey, just want to talk," or anything like that. I hope you want to talk to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people are like, "I don't really like to talk to people." So how was that for you, by the way? Talking with people, like the social, because that's another thing I've noticed with a lot of gamers is sometimes the social aspect, especially growing up, was really hard for them.
For me, it was generally fine. Like, usually when I meet a new person, I'm kind of like in this bubble, I guess. Kind of not really showing my true self. But after a while, I kind of just explode, and I turn into this like kind of funny, kind of random person eventually. And I kind of do stuff that no one usually does. Like, it's, I don't know, random stuff. But yeah, usually takes some time for me to like get out of the bubble, but when I do, I'm an okay person. Yeah.
You're an okay person.
Yeah, okay person.
Oh, so when you had that hard part in your kind of like your life where you were playing more video games and you started to hit 15 and that was the point. Did you notice any
Yeah.
change with your friend groups? Did you still hang out with them all the time? Because that's another thing I've noticed is that people who start to get serious in gaming, they tend to not play with their friends as much just because their friends aren't as good, and they tend to focus way more on the competitive side.
Yeah, I mean at the time, not really, because we were playing like League of Legends where we played like 5-stack, so I kind of always played with them. But eventually, when I got into Overwatch, none of my friends got into Overwatch, so it was only me playing Overwatch, and then kind of drew away, and they started playing like World of Warcraft, League of Legends still. I just went straight into Overwatch, so after Overwatch, I don't think I never really played with them outside of like casual games here and there.
Okay, so you during that time you probably noticed a big shift then from hanging out with people to more just playing
Yeah.
video games. What was that like?
At first it was kind of fun, but eventually you realize that there's so many people that like helped you grow so much that they haven't talked to in such a long time, especially in LA, like, 7-8 months, and I haven't really talked to any of my old friends really. Now I got back, I met with all of them basically, which is super fun, and I've played with all of them, which is also really nice. But at first it's kind of, you don't realize it, but after a while you realize like, holy shit, I have so many friends that I really want to talk to and meet, and I can't really do it in LA.
Yeah, everyone kind of looks at the esports lifestyle as something that is like put on a pedestal almost, and I don't think they realize the sacrifice that an individual has to make for that. Was like looking back at it now, because I think it goes by so fast, especially in Overwatch League. That is a grind and a half.
Yep.
And looking back on it, do you have regrets of things that you missed out on? Like, I know some people are like, I didn't do these things in high school that I kind of wish I would have because I was too busy focused on this. I know in the States a big one is prom. I know I've heard people say that, hey, I didn't go to prom because I was too. And I know that for me, those are moments that I remember very well, and I like at the time didn't value them. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm really happy I did that. Do you have moments where you're like, wow, I kind of really missed out on this?
Not that I didn't go to prom, actually, but I asked my friends and they said it wasn't really fun. But I'm not sure if that just because they're gamers, they didn't really like hang out with people. But I can't think of anything that's like I really missed that out actually. No, I guess prom would be like the only thing that if I had the chance to go, I would probably go.
What about any things with like family members? Did you miss out on any family members' life? That's another thing that I've noticed too. Is sometimes, especially as people get older and they pass, sometimes we miss out on those moments in our lives. And I think looking back, sometimes we really can regret it.
Not maybe when I was younger, probably spent more time with my mom. Since it eventually shifted to me only being at my dad for months and months and months. I think it's going to my mom here and there. I think it would make her a lot more happy, actually, probably.
So that's a kind of a regret you have. You think that?
Yeah. I think she really missed me, but she was kind of afraid to show it because she knew I wanted to be with my friends and in my hometown. So I think I should have just went out there a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, that guilt would be. I definitely can understand. Like wishing that you could have been there more in those moments, because. I'm getting all emotional now. So we talked about the grind in Overwatch, and it was definitely like Overwatch League is kind of a grind, and they recently announced that they're actually changing the structure a little bit.
Thank God.
Do you think that it's actually going to improve? Because I have a very pessimistic view on this.
It depends. I mean, they didn't tell us how long the break was going to be, right?
No, I don't think that they did.
Okay. Because that's kind of up in the air. So I'm wondering if it's going to be like 2-week break or like a longer break. Because if it's longer, then maybe you have time to like travel home and stuff.
Yeah.
Like a week or a couple of days.
The stuff that I have heard says that it's supposed to be longer. I do not know for certain, though.
Yeah. I guess if it's longer, it's obviously going to get better. But if it's like 2 weeks, it's going to be kind of weird. Because then you take a break and then you have to grind again. And then you kind of lose your, like, I guess, team chemistry in that a little bit. But I don't know.
And
that was weird, but
that was the thing I was going to ask you is, so you have a longer time. And the patch almost I don't know if they're going to change the way the patches happen, but the patch would change
Yeah.
in between stages. So
Yeah.
normally that break time was, hey, we need to learn this patch, and how much
Yeah.
free time do you give versus how much do you spend learning this? And is it just going to cause teams to be like, well, we have 2 weeks to learn this new patch. That's like a perfect amount of time. Do we give them a couple days still only, or do we sacrifice learning the patch whereas someone else might be able to spend that time learning it?
Yeah. I mean, that was a problem all season as well. Like, barely had any off time because it was like when there was a patch, like you just had to play. Like you maybe got like 1 or 2 off days during the stage break, and then back in the grind, just try every comp possible, and just, grind practice every day.
So, and that's I think the patch schedule has more to do with that break than
Yeah.
the actual break, because I could definitely see, because there is nothing on Blizzard on like mandated work hours, or which a whole other topic of like, should you force someone to work extra or anything like that, which I fully think that someone's free time is their own. So if they want to, if they don't want to work, they can work.
Yeah.
But I think forced work time is very much different.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but looking at that, I think the patch is actually going to mean more for. Granted, you have more time, but is that more time for someone's mental health, or is that more time to learn? Like, there's a double-edged sword to that I think is no one is talking about. They all are like, oh my god, they're increasing the time, because we're hoping that everyone is going to do what we would consider to be the healthiest thing.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't know if some people are. What do you think?
I hope teams take mental health more seriously this season, because last season it felt like every team, or like not every team, but most teams were
A
kind
lot
of
of teams, yeah.
Yeah, like they was getting burnt out. You could see players, like when you meet them, they were kind of like slothy. Myself, I had a period where like I felt like shit. My motivation was low, my energy was low. I think I just hope a lot of teams to take more information about it, take more staff members into helping it, and just really talk with the players and get their mental health steady and good.
Yeah, I know that was something that I focused on when I was working with Gladiators last year, was that, hey, we might need to increase the break amount. Like, I know we don't have time, but this is something that would be probably good for our players to increase this time. And you have to weigh if it's going to be worth it to hurt the mental health, or if it's better to go through. And that was something that I know that I tried to focus on a lot. And it's just interesting how different teams do it, because there are going to be some teams that are not going to. They will not care.
Yep.
And it hurts my soul inside when I see that. Like, I see you guys, and I'm like, even if like Nomi's older than me, right? And even like him, I'm like, you poor children. I hope that like I want you guys to all have a very healthy mental health. You mentioned that mental health was hard on you during the season. What was that like?
It's obviously rough because it impacts your performance like a lot. So it's kind of like you hit the slump, and your energy is low, and your motivation is low, and you kind of feel like there's no motivation to practice. But then we started getting things to working out, which helped me a lot. I think it was the main thing that got me back on track. So we started working out, and it was like it changed everything. Like I woke up, I worked out, and I felt like a new person every time. Like you have so much energy, and you feel like you actually did something important with your day before the practice. So when you got to the practice, you were like, we're gonna crush this shit. We're gonna win everything. You're just going full ham, and I don't know, working out is amazing.
I do agree. I don't think you can force workouts. I think that is the only problem. Is I think if you force it, people get very resentful. A lot of people think that, oh, you can just force them to do it. Anything that you force on an individual, you have to weigh the benefits and the risks, because there's always resentment, and when resentment builds up, it becomes a really big issue. But I think if someone wants to get healthier, I think you should educate them on it and try to get them to do it. Same thing with structure, though, like sleep. That is a big thing that I see in esports, where people will not have steady sleep schedules. So were you a culprit of the steady sleep schedule issue?
No, I think we had pretty good sleep schedule, because we had like this, I guess, bus van thingy that leaves at 10:30 in the morning, so everyone kind of had to be ready at that time. So as far as I know, I had like a decent sleep schedule, like at least maybe like a 1 hour difference maybe from when I went to bed and woke up. So I don't think it was that bad actually for me.
Okay, good. That's good. So mental health you mentioned mental health for most teams was an issue. I know specifically for Mayhem, like it was a pretty big issue that was talked about a lot last season. You had
Yeah.
Mineral who stepped down, who was had announced that he had issues. I
Yeah.
imagine that the players had issues. You guys had one of the smaller teams starting out, definitely. And I think throughout
Yeah.
most of the season, you actually had this. Do you have the smallest team?
We had 9 by the end of the
Okay,
season.
so by the end of the season, I think you
Yeah.
I think
Probably.
you caught up, but definitely
Yeah.
at the beginning you did. Um,
Yeah.
and support staff, I think you had one of the smaller support staffs as well.
Yeah, we had 1 and then eventually 3 at the end.
Yeah.
Or 2, I guess. 1 Mineral went back.
So, what was the environment like there? Because I know you guys were always very positive, but
Yeah.
being positive doesn't necessarily mean that your mental health is fine. A good example I like to use is, oh my God, his name blank, Patch Adams. Oh my gosh. A lot of comedians they always seem very, very positive and happy and they can joke around, but a lot of times suffer from depression. So
Yeah.
I cannot remember his name. So what was it like on Mayhem?
In general, it was actually really good, surprisingly. I'm not sure it was like people were hiding their emotions, just trying to be positive in that way, but I mean, at the end, it kind of went more into we can't really win anything. Like, I think like mid-stage 4, we realized even if we win, the only thing we gain is experience. But then we also realized we're fighting for our careers, you know? Like, if we go out and we just get stomped, the odds of us getting picked up is super, super low. So I think eventually we got our motivation back and kind of started grinding for our careers and not always winning and getting to stage playoffs or whatever, which is super important.
Yeah. Did you guys feel that you didn't have the structure there? Because I mean, obviously, everyone going into Overwatch, they didn't. I don't think people understood what they were getting into. So I don't want to say that that is a fault of an organization because I don't know if you can really because Overwatch is kind of a new schedule that has never been really seen before, and I mean they're adapting it themselves because they were like, wow, this is great. Do you think that the structure wasn't there?
Yeah, I think it caught us and the organization off guard. I mean, if you look at other esports, the odds of you having like a big roster and you're swapping out players here and there and for different comps, I think it's unheard of in esports, as far as I know. Like in League of Legends, you only have maybe like 5-6 players, I guess, max. And then, yeah, I think it just caught everyone off guard. Like more players, more staff, mental health, all that stuff. It's really caught us off guard on how big the grind is actually for Overwatch League.
Yeah, I think it is quite big. You mentioned that you were in Florida for like 3 weeks and you actually didn't play on your computer very much.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because that must have been like it's probably been years, I imagine, that you went.
Never spent that much time outside of the computer. But yeah, it was actually amazing. Like, it was super refreshing just knowing that I don't have to do anything today. I just woke up, hang out with the team, maybe we play some volleyball, went to the beach, hang out at the penthouse that we had at the last couple of days. So yeah, it was amazing. I think everyone really needed that vacation.
Is it a little like your perspective has definitely got to change that moment where you're like, wow, I don't need a computer. Because there is definitely, I think, for a lot of gamers, it is a need that they have. I mean, it's definitely a want. They don't actually need it, but it feels like a need. It's like, what do I do without my computer here?
Yeah.
So that must have been like the first time in a long time where it was like this need. I mean, I imagine it's like not having your phone on you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're at your home and you have a PC next to you, if you wake up, you're probably gonna go turn the PC on. Like, if you're a gamer, you're gonna turn it on no matter what. But if you're not at your home and you don't have a PC, it's gonna feel weird at first because you're gonna wake up and you're like, wait, what am I gonna do now? But then eventually you just get out of it and it's like, oh, there's actually real life here. I can go outside. I can do fun stuff outside of the computer. Just gotta get used to it, I guess. But yeah, it was a bit weird, but definitely worth it.
So, what experiences have you had that you've got to experience now that you were actually able to step away? Anything that like memorable? You're like, wow, I will remember this for the rest of my life.
Good question. I mean, I guess it was just meeting all the fans. To be honest, like we went to SuperCon, we went to a couple like universities, and just had a couple like what do you call like a talk, not a talk show, but like we're talking, answering questions like a Q&A, I guess. Younger kids asking us questions. We had a meetup with Miami Heat, which was super awesome.
Oh, that must have been cool. What was that like meeting them?
It was super. It was unreal. Of course, they played Fortnite, and we're talking about Fortnite. Like, oh, we play video games. Do you know Fortnite? It's like, yeah, we know Fortnite, but we don't like that game too much.
I was gonna say I don't really like Fortnite. Like everyone talks about, it, and I'm like, I don't like this game.
Not a big fan. Not a
Yeah,
big fan.
it
But yeah,
looks
it was
too
super fun.
cartoony. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
so,
yeah.
and I don't know anyone who's on Miami Heat because I don't follow sports at all. So, I don't know if you did. So, like, because I imagine it's like meeting someone you don't know. Like, if I
Yeah.
were to meet a musician that, like a famous, I would be like, the value that I would have for that encounter would be a lot higher. Like, if I met someone who
Yeah.
was in like pro sports, I don't know if I could appreciate the value because I'm like, I don't know who you are. So,
Yeah.
was it?
I mean, no, I didn't really know anyone. Mineral is super into basketball, so I guess it was more fun for him because he knows like every player in and out. Like he used to write, like he was like a journalist, I guess,
Mhm.
for about basketball and stuff. So for him, it was really fun. But I didn't really know anyone, but it was just cool to see them and they knowing like the gaming side and how it's growing, and yeah, they seemed interested in gaming in general. So
Yeah, so your interaction with them is probably very different than the way Mineral had his reaction because you're kind
Yeah.
of view like this is just another person.
yeah,
And I think what's kind of cool about that is if you look at the way fans treat you guys versus how you actually are, it's a very, very similar dynamic. Like if a fan doesn't know who you are, they're just gonna the way that they treat you is very different than if they know that you're
Yeah.
some famous esports person. So what has that been like? Like the way that fans treat you?
I mean, it was fun actually because once we got to Florida, we met a few people there, and then we went to the next event, and then we met the same people there. And the more we met them, the more I guess normal they got around us, and eventually they just like they felt like just friends and family just hanging around. It was just at the end it was just like a big group of friends just talking and having fun. And before that it was just like fangirls, fanboys, and it's kind of like, oh, I'm a bit too scared to go up and just talk to them. But eventually we just went to like, what is that, the hot wing place called?
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yes, yeah. We just went there and we just sat down and I don't know, just felt like friends.
I'm not sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings, but I'm doing keto right now, and I crave buffalo. As soon as you mentioned wing place, that was what came to my head. I was like, oh my god, I want wings that I cannot eat.
Good.
Oh.
I don't want wings. I did the blazing challenge twice in a row. Never again.
You can eat normal wings. You don't have to eat wings that burn your face off.
But it's fun.
If you're a masochist, maybe you're like, oh, I like the pain. Oh.
I like the challenge.
So you mentioned kind of like e-boys and e-girls. Has that ever been an issue for you? Like you have these random people who are reaching out to you, and it's just kind of weird.
Not in a bad way,
Okay.
actually. I've had people ask me to like coach them and stuff, which is actually really fun. I told them like, yeah, if I get like a lot of free time, and yeah, sure, I'm down to coach your team. But not really in a weird way now. But I guess a lot of people have been kind of spammed or on the risk of.
Yeah, some people have been. Sometimes
Yeah.
they get some more risque things, and
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if like what is your experience with that? And it hasn't been that bad then.
No, been pretty good for me actually. I think I only remember like one weird thing. Someone asked me to go to prom with them. I was actually serious, which was kind of weird, but other than that, it was fine.
We're sorry for your prom date that he could not go on. I
Yes,
hope you
I
had
would
a
love
good
to,
date. I don't know who
but I
it was,
can't.
but so another thing that comes up a lot of times is like relationships in esports because you don't have a lot of time, and the viewpoints that I've seen individuals take are a lot of times extremes, I think, where they're like, this is not a possibility at all, or this could be a possibility if it is. Well, my viewpoint is it could be a possibility if it's healthy.
Yeah.
What is kind of like your opinion on that?
I think it's hard, especially if you're like in the Overwatch League, or especially if you're not a Native American area in the Overwatch League, because then like the traveling and then you're being like super far away. So I think it's pretty hard to manage. You can definitely do it, of course. I mean, there's a lot of people in the Overwatch League with great relationships, but
Yeah.
personally, I'm probably just gonna, unless I found like someone that's amazing, I'm probably just gonna wait so I can treat them better and not just travel away for months and months.
That makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
Be able to do that. So it's not that you're against it. It's more so that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
if I find the one, sure,
Yeah.
but I'm not actively gonna go and look for it.
that makes sense. You're hoping that a Disney princess just
Yeah.
you get the wand where.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about relationships. you mentioned being on Luminosity when you got signed with them, and that's functionally like a kind of like what I imagine a tier 2 is now.
Yeah.
Okay. And that experience, did you? This brings into jumping into the is it Infinite or Infinity? It's the Optics
sure.
head organization. I think it's
Yeah.
Infinite. And the stuff that just got recently revealed, which was terrifying for anyone who's in the T2 scene. What was your T2 kind of like experience like?
Honestly, it was amazing because Steve, the owner of Luminosity, is really great. Like we just like when we talked, like we want a gaming house, and we're like, okay, you can come to Canada. I'll get you a gaming house. We went to Canada. We lived there for about 2 months, if I remember correctly. And he lived actually pretty close to the gaming house. So maybe like every other day we would go eat with him, or he would do something fun, like a fun activity, just to bond with the team. So yeah, like my tier 2 experience is beyond amazing, I think.
Okay. Did you
I'm
have
super lucky to have it.
Did you have any lawyers or anything like that to look over your contracts at the time?
Not back then. I do now, obviously, but
Yeah.
back then it was just me just signing paper.
Did you understand what you were getting into? Because I don't think a lot. Because I look at when I was 18, 19. I would have, and I was fairly up on like laws and stuff. Like I enjoy learning about laws. I enjoy learning about contracts and stuff. Like it's something I've always enjoyed. But when I was 18, 19, there's no way I would have understood. Like, I would have been sure. Like I don't know what I'm getting into. Did you have any idea of what you were kind of getting into though?
I guess a little bit, but I didn't really understand the whole contract like, as a whole.
Yeah.
But Mineral and Savi, they're older. Mineral especially, he knows more about this stuff, so he kind of, I guess, taught us a bit about it. And kind of went over it and like how it works and what we should do, and I guess he kind of fixed the contract so it looked better. Well.
Okay, so Mineral was kind of like your guiding light and your because I imagine is Mineral a couple years older than you? I don't actually know how old Mineral is.
Yeah. I actually don't know exactly, but yeah, he's older than me.
Okay, so he must have been like your kind of like the adult figure or like the father figure that was kind of trying to look out for all of you guys.
Yeah, like in every team I've been with him, he's always like the dad and the leader, and he's really good at that. So, yeah.
Okay. So looking at the T2, what do you think about the whole Infinite thing? Like when you heard about that, what was your initial reaction?
Honestly, I didn't read almost anything about it. I just know, I guess players got scammed, didn't get money.
So the TLDR version, okay, is that supposedly they were trying to recruit 4 or 5 different academy teams, which is that's what was reported, which isn't possible. But they were trying to grab like a bunch of them and get them underneath different contracts, and then there was some, I guess, shady contracts sent out. And I don't think many people in the T2 scene actually have agents or lawyers, for that matter. And so I don't think a lot of them knew what they were getting into. And then the whole thing happened where obviously Optic didn't play at all for the open trials. They just bowed out because everything was cut. So all of those players who thought they were on a team ended up not being on a team.
Yeah, that's scary for sure. It's like, when you're in the team, it's not much you can do. I guess you could try to find like a lawyer that can just look over it fast, I guess, for free. I mean, you could probably, I guess Morrison, he's really a nice guy. He could probably do it. You send it to Morrison, he'll look over it pretty fast, and then get help from him. But other than that, like, in the lower tiers, there's a lot of shady stuff going on, for sure.
So, is that who your agent is, Morrison?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's awesome.
I'm also underneath the same agency. Who would have known? So they're really good guys. I think that they're almost always willing to at least give you a look over on things.
Yeah.
I would reach out to them if you're a player, and see if they can help you if that's something you're interested in. So I like them very much. So but
highly recommend.
Yeah, highly recommend from us. But looking at that T2 scene, a lot of people have talked about like whose responsibility is it to kind of like fix this problem? Do you think that it is Blizzard's responsibility, or do you think it's on the players? Or even the organization, I guess. But I don't know how you monitor the organization without Blizzard.
That's a tough one, actually. I guess for the academy teams, I guess Blizzard could help out a lot, obviously. But in general, I think it's going to be a hard thing to fix.
Yeah.
Because like it's on everyone a little bit, you know. Like players have to look over it, you know. Blizzard has to look over it a little bit. The teams have to get, more professional, a lot better. Yeah, I think it's just on everyone, basically.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how people try to go very, very quickly, like this is the easy solution.
Yeah,
So like a good example is people are spouting out about a players union,
yeah,
right? And I don't think people understand how difficult it would be for a players union to A, get started, B, to get run, right? Like
yeah,
none of those things are easy. Like it's like, hey, just start a players union, but who's gonna start it? Who's gonna pay
yeah.
for it? Because anytime you start something, it costs money. Okay, so who's paying for it? Like, and whose responsibility is it? So, how do you feel about the whole player union debate? I mean, I personally, it's something I think I would like to see. I don't know how
Yeah.
plausible it is to get started. That's the like I see it and I'm like, I would want this, but I don't know who's paying for it, and I don't know who's going to run it. And I think with League of Legends, we've seen so far that their player union, I don't know how effective it has actually been.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but yeah, I think it would be super, I guess, healthy for the
Mhm.
scene and Overwatch League in general to have a player union. I guess it was a bit in the talks last season to have like a Seagull as like the main guy,
Mhm.
have the head of the player union, but never went through. And I'm not sure if they're talking about it now for the next season, but yeah, it should happen. I hope it happens, but it's definitely gonna be tough for sure.
Yeah, I don't know who's. I, that's part of me wants to say that maybe Blizzard should mandate some things. Like I could
Yeah,
like they've already mandated certain things on like contracts. Like
yeah,
I could definitely see that, like, and I'm not saying full control, but maybe like I think helping out with the breaks if they put a maximum like team work hours. What someone wants to do with their individual time, I fully believe is their own. Whether or not they want to play Fortnite or whether or not they want to go out and hang out with friends, I think someone's autonomy is their own, and you should not take that
yeah,
away from them. I think you should maybe have someone there who educates them on healthy things like working out, or hey, maybe you should try doing this with your time. But ultimately, it's their decision what their free time is.
yeah,
But I think
yeah, for
Blizzard
sure.
could put in different maybe contract things to include maximum work time. You have to give this many days break with the time off that we're giving you. And I
Yeah,
think if they were to do that, it would maybe help it.
yeah, I think it would help a lot actually, because everyone is gonna listen to Blizzard.
Yeah, and I think it's easier than honestly a players union.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the
probably.
biggest thing is the implementation would be significantly easier than a players union looking at the scene like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I agree.
I think it would help. Looking at Mayhem and the announcement of not being on Mayhem, when you first found out that they weren't going to repick you up, what was the first thought you had?
First thought was probably I need to find tryouts. Was my first thought. Like I need tryouts, so started kind of contacting my agents. Like, hey, can you find tryouts? Am I allowed to talk to managers and
Hmm.
teammates, etc. Managed to find a few tryouts, which is good. But yeah, that was my first thought.
Were you
I need to
scared?
find tryouts. A little bit, yeah, but I kind of expected it
Hmm.
because I talked to Matt before, our manager,
Hmm.
a couple of months back after their tryouts for Mayhem. So I kind of expected it in a bit, and I was kind of prepared for it. But I think if it was kind of out of the blue, I would probably gotten a lot more scared. So I'm grateful for Matt for calling me and talking to me about it before.
Yeah, Matt seems like a really good guy. I've talked to him a couple
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
so you're looking at. You obviously cannot tell me about any tryouts. I don't expect you to. I'm not going to ask you about it. Does it look positive for you in the future? I will ask that.
Yes, yeah, it does.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna ask you. I'm not gonna dig too far. As much as it would be awesome if you could tell people, but I don't
It
think you
will.
can, and I don't think you will. So I'm not gonna bother shooting in the dark. What have been some important supporting factors for you while in Overwatch? Like things that if I wouldn't have had these, it would have been a lot worse. Whether that's
Main thing,
family, friends, anything like that.
main thing, I guess the coaching staff in general,
Hmm.
especially Mineral, helped us a lot, like individually,
Hmm.
keep the motivation and spirit high, and like the work schedule and how we should practice. Um, the staff in general, like Matt, John, Ben from Mayhem, they're all amazing guys. They're really helping out a lot with literally everything you can imagine. Family, of course. When I have free time, I like to just hop on Discord, play some games with my brothers. Call my dad, my mom, whatever. So yeah, I think just everything as a whole, everyone's just been really nice and supportive. I think everyone just helps with if I just call my dad and it helps me with my motivation for like 20%, like that's amazing. Just by calling him, I can feel so much better for the rest of the day.
Hmm. Did you ever have moments where you were low moments. Like, what were your low moments like in the like? Oh my God, I'm doomed. I'm not good at any like negative. What were those moments like?
I guess it was probably around like the stage 4 area when Mineral left. After that, we kind of got lost a bit. Like, okay, how are we gonna practice? You know, who's gonna set up everything up? And we kind of just like every practice felt just like a blind test basically. Like we didn't know what to do, what to practice, how our next day was gonna look like, how our plan is for the next match. I think that was the lowest moment, but we were kind of doomed already. Like the only thing we had going was maybe stage 4 players if we just magically got like a lot better, but no, obviously respect Mineral's decision to step down. I think it's good for him to do it instead of just grinding through while being burnt out and maybe just crashing completely. So yeah, I think it was good for him to step down, but that was probably the lowest moment for me.
Now, was it something that was expected, or was it kind of like out of the blue? Like one day he was there and one day he wasn't.
I didn't expect it, but I mean, I guess it kind of happens when you're, a solo coach, like solo staff member, and you have to keep track on the 7 players and 40 matches, and all like he even did like some managing stuff, and yeah, I kind of expected it in a bit, but it was still surprising when he went to the room and told us.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that would have been like for him. And I'm not blaming him at all for anything like this.
Of course
no. And I think it's something serious to talk about though that we need to look at and be like, hey, what do we do moving forward? What do we do here? And I want people to understand that like this Overwatch League, or really esports in general, because I'm actually going to be reaching out to other genres as well, is not it's not as beautiful as it looks on the outside all the time. Like,
nope.
It is pushed up to be this like golden cow, and it's when you really get into it, it's not easy. I've known players who have like broken down. It's in the Overwatch League, we had lots of players who had mentioned that, hey, I think it was actually, was it Siegel who was like, I put on a lot of weight. And this was because that's one of the things he mentioned when he said he was getting out of Overwatch League is
he had sleep apnea as well, right? Which hurt him.
Yeah,
like energetic wise.
Yeah, and I mean sleep apnea, part of it can be caused by weight too. Actually, I know that's something I've suffered with, and one of the reasons I try to lose weight. And I know that I stress. I put on like 30 pounds, I think. I've almost lost all of that, but I put on 30 pounds in like 4 months because I stress eat. And it happens because you're stressed out. You're like the results matter, right? The way you play. And I think that I was on a team that did fairly well, actually, especially considering starting out. And I still put on 30 pounds. And I can't imagine what it would have been like on a team that was having a lot harder of a time. Like, I think about, like, you guys, or I think about Dallas for a lot of the season, or I think about, like, Shanghai Dragons, which the stuff that we had heard about their schedule sounded...
Yeah.
I don't know how those players are, how they handled it, to be honest.
I have no idea. I know that, like, especially when they lost against us, they got really emotional because obviously they have the highest chance of beating us, and then we narrowly beat them. I don't even want to imagine what they felt after that game, because that was kind of like their last chance of just not going 0-40. But yeah, I don't know how they managed to keep that practice schedule, and I don't know. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, do you think that there's a lot brought up about like Koreans or Eastern culture being a lot better than Western culture? What are your thoughts on that?
I guess it's obviously different. I'm not sure exactly how different it is because I haven't really looked into Korean teams. I guess people are saying they practice more, they practice harder, practice more days, etc. The main thing that Ryder told me is they practice with more purpose and with more, I guess, reliability and accountability. Like if someone screws up, that player needs to fix it, While for us, it was kind of someone screws up and it's like, okay, not bad. You made a mistake, it happens, But I think if on a full Korean team with a full Korean staff, if someone screws up, like you need to fix it like fast. I think it's just more aggressive style, I guess, probably.
Interesting, because I look at like Seoul, who they didn't even make playoffs either, and they were a full Korean roster, but everyone expected Seoul to. And I wonder how much of that is. I wonder how much of it is true or just something that I know that culture is definitely important, like the way that just the individual race is a very important factor, versus Western and different cultures. I know that for Western culture, emotions actually are kind of a, I don't want to say an issue, but a lot of times people don't know how to handle them.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah,
in
for sure.
different cultures, they're more used to, emotions aren't a thing. They're not something you talk about. They're not something you deal with. But I think we're very bad. I think Western culture is very bad at either suppressing emotions or handling them. So, what was
Yeah.
your guys' experience like on? Because you mentioned that maybe some people were suppressing them to try to be funny, to keep everyone's spirits up. What was that like?
I mean, we had Swedes and Finns,
Mhm.
and like I guess the Scandinavian culture is you don't really have a lot of emotions.
Mhm.
Like even if you have them, you're probably not gonna show them. Like I don't think I ever saw Supe be angry, sad, depressed, anything. Like Supe is kind of like this grinding robot that just does everything he can to win, basically.
Mhm.
And I guess Swedes are kind of the same. Like no one really got sad or angry at all. I mean, I guess there were moments where people were kind of like, oh, we lost, sucks. But no one really just bursted out and just got super depressed or anything like that.
Did you ever have issues? How did you handle those on like your own time though, where you have to sit in those feelings and handle them? Did you reach out to people? Was it something that you had moments where it was, wow, this is like you up at night and be like, what am I gonna do?
Personally, it was never a big problem for me, like the way of losing or playing poorly, because it was like the only thing I can do is go into the next day and just play better.
Mhm.
Like that's the only thing I can do. So I just tried to put everything I could into practice and just fix the mistakes and get better. Everyone handles like losses and etc. differently. Some people get angry and they use that as motivation. Some people get sad and they use that as motivation. I just I kind of really never felt anything. Just went into practice and tried my best again.
So you're always able to take kind of a positive perspective on things. You're always like, okay, well, if I lost really bad, then at least I'm learning something.
Yeah. I like to think that I took it like that, yeah.
You like to think you're like, maybe
I
I
mean,
did.
my teammates might have a different approach. I'm not sure how they felt about me, but I tried to do that, and I hope I succeeded doing it. I felt like I did at least.
Where did you learn that? Because that is not something that is always like the way that people's perspective is. Like, where do you think you learned that perspective from?
I'm not sure, actually. I guess the main problem was when I was younger, I was super angry all the time. I had like massive anger issues.
Mhm.
Like I remember a time where it was my birthday. My mom gave me a gift, but I didn't like it, so I just took it and just threw it away. I think I was like maybe 5, 4, something like that, 6. I'm not sure exactly, but I had massive anger issues. But my brothers never had anger issues or any like mental issue, and I always looked up to them and how they were. So I think they kind of teach me the way of just not caring emotionally, just doing your best all the time.
Huh. So when did you get over the anger issues?
It's tough to pinpoint, but it was probably around like the 16 age-ish, around
Okay,
there.
so you had them. Did you ever did you ever have issues in school with that?
No, it was more around like the gaming and around that style. It was never really in school.
Okay. Did you ever break things? Like you mentioned gaming. Did you
Oh yeah,
were you one of those
I've
people who threw
punched
the
monitors, I've punched keyboards, I've done everything.
Yeah, I think what he is saying is this is a very unhealthy behavior that just works quite. It seems like you've worked quite a while to change it if you're not like, because you're everything that I've seen you in, and even talking to you now, you are a very happy person, and like seeing
Yeah.
you just seem happy. So maybe you're like the best bullshitter I've ever seen, or you have
No,
worked that changed it.
I met my mother last weekend actually. My mother, my grandma, and my brother and their kid actually.
Mhm.
And my mother's like, "How did you change? Because when you were a kid, you were so angry, but now you're so happy all the time." And she was like, "I don't know how." And my grandma said the same. So I didn't know how angry I was when I was like super young, like the baby size. But apparently I was super mad all the time back then too. But somehow I changed. I don't know exactly how, but yeah, it worked out.
Good. I mean, kudos to you, man. Like that's something that I've worked with players on before is anger issues. It's actually fairly
Yeah.
common with a lot of gamers. You see it in ranked all the time.
Yeah.
So it's very very common on like video game platforms.
Ranked is different though.
Are,
I don't
are
think you cannot be mad at ranked sometimes.
really? So you get angry
Yeah.
at ranked?
Not angry to the point where I type to someone like, "Hey, you're trash," or tell someone that they're trash. But
That is like
I
the
guess-
least toxic comment you could have said there. I have seen some pretty bad comments. Okay, so continue on.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's just annoying
Okay.
losing when you can't do anything about it. But when it's a team, like when I'm with a team or playing with like a friend, I don't give a shit, you know. Like people make mistakes, as long as they take responsibility for it, you know, fine, just move on.
So you don't feel like you have a loss of control when you play with friends or team. That's
never.
And in ranked, it's out of your control. It's literally I have to sit there and watch, and I can't control it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about going in here? I think we've covered a good portion of things.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to think, but not on top of my head.
Is there anything that someone doesn't know about you that you could tell them right now?
Ooh. Well. Nope.
Okay. I think I've covered everything. Do you want to give any shout-outs to anyone?
Shoutouts to everyone that's still supporting me. Even during the off-season, I get messages from all the fans saying like, good luck finding a new team. I hope I find a new team. You know, this team should pick you up. This team should pick you up. You guys are amazing. You know who you are. Thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be here. So thank you. I love you guys. And thanks for listening and watching.
That is the end of Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. Thank you so much, Tim Bylund. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey guys, I want to thank you for making it to the end of this video. I know that this content is a longer format specifically to showcase a more emotional side of people involved in esports. I think it's really important that we stay empathetic and show support to all of my guests that are willing to come onto the show. Sometimes they share some very heartfelt things that they've never shared with anyone else before. I think it's important that they understand that we support them and that this is a safe experience to do. This will show others that coming on the show is something that they can also do in order to share with all of us so we better understand esports as a whole and the people who are involved in it. Finally, if you enjoy this content as much as I do making it, I would encourage you to check out my Patreon that I have created. This will help you to support equipment upgrades, future content, exclusive content, and my general ability to drink an overabundant amount of coffee. And make sure to include some tiers that allow you to support this channel and give rewards anywhere from receiving my content early to being able to know the guest early and submit questions for exclusive videos. So I hope you check it out. I hope you have a wonderful day.